Hi, Joy Brooks here with Email and Coffee. Today I'm talking with Russell Rut Dawson. Rut and I have crossed each other's paths over the years, but just recently began talking with one another through Zoom. The two of us are as email geeky as we can get, and that's a good thing. Today, Rut and I are going to talk about email marketing audits. Perhaps you've done one informally as part of process or been forced to manage through triage. Truth be told, an audit is an evolving checkup that every email marketing specialist should be well familiar with. So, Rod, before we deep dive, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Joy. Pleasure. Yeah, so I've been in email marketing for about 12 years now. You know, started as part of a large team, go up and sort of own email operations. But I love email. I love email. You know, it's the most successful channel that's out there. You know, cheapest route to market. And it's a lovely mix of creativity, the technical aspects, obviously stakeholder business. So no day's ever been the same. You know, in that aspect. So something I don't see, despite everything you read, I don't see email going away anytime soon. So you know, it's been wonderful to, you know, have that as a career for the last 12 years. And also, you know, the community that we have, you know, for email professionals and email geeks as well, you know, like yourself, and catching up with everybody else. You know, just a really special bunch of people. So it's been a pleasure, you know, sort of to work in that environment for 12 years. And you know, now that I'm at Taxi, you know, I get to work with you know, with more email professionals and not just the email guy. That, you know, it's lovely to be with like-minded people and, you know, really great bunch. So yeah, couldn't be happier at the moment. Everything's going very well.
Yeah, we are a geekish community, but we're very close. And always, you know, it's always a pleasure meeting someone new in the community. And you know, it's like we're famous kind of things. And when you finally meet somebody that you've been following for all those years, sort of like meeting some sort of a rock star, it's always fun. It really is. It's an interesting industry. So,
well, I think this is the reason for catching up with people, right? Because we've been connected on social for so long and then never had the chance to speak. You know, you kind of comment on each other's posts and speak, but just what you said there is a bit of a fanboy moment. So when you see these people at conferences or pre-pandemic, and you'd be like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." You know, I've kind of followed you for like, you know, 8 or 9 years or so and never said hello to you, and it's a bit it can be a bit weird in that sort of sense like that. So it's you know, it's lovely to actually get in front of people and chat with people, you know, like we've done, you know, and for today as well. And you think, why did I leave it so long? You know, this wonderful people, you know.
it's kind of exciting. And talking about exciting. So, you know, there are a lot of metrics and processes involved in an audit, like KPIs, lifetime value, deliverability, automations, lots of buzzwords. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Rut, take it away.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so audits, it was great to talk about audits today because they're a key part of when you start or sort of start into a new role or be promoted into sort of like the head of email role to take a look. And it's really about putting facts on the table. And sometimes that can be quite a difficult situation to do, you know, to come in and tell people that they're not doing something right, or, you know, they've been doing it wrong, or sort of, you know, weaknesses and strengths, etc. But how we look around the email audit, and obviously like the aims of the, you know, your email operation is around, you can break them down into 4 parts really. So that is growing the email contactable database, and making sure that you've got a constant supply. So if you think you're churning your list there 20-30% every year, you need a fresh supply of new leads, you know, new customers to come in every time. So the acquisition part is really important, obviously keeping those acquisition costs down. The other area is the retention and the you know, the reducing churn. So trying to keep people engaged for longer periods and stop them sort of you know, becoming inactive before you're losing them. So, you know, a lot of work around those customers that you identify like at risk or are likely to going, you know, disengaged. Again, you know, if you've got a daily newsletter, those sort of frequencies are going to be different than if you're sending out a monthly one. So it's being able to sort of, you know, keep an eye on those, and try and keep as much of your database as profitable, because really at the end of the day, it is a financial business asset. Your database, your email database is there. It makes the business money. It should be making about 30% of your overall sort of revenue with it. So, you know, it really needs to be focused on. The engagement as well, and the return of investment all ties into the lifetime value of subscribers as well. So, you know, you can have lots of email addresses, but if they're not spending any money with you, you have to sort of question the wisdom about it. But there's lots of you know, opportunities to optimize those, you know, sort of the best practices, and sort of provide that relevant information to keep that engagement. And a lot of that is down to like the segmentation and personalization efforts. Being able to do those, identifying your top groups, you know, based on their purchase history or sort of previous transactional, you know, is how you're going to increase those average order values, you know, get those upsells, those cross sells within there. And that means that if for each email address within your database is growing, it should be getting larger every year with that. And your stakeholder business management as well, because I add this in because outside of the email part, if you can't get on with your colleagues or can't sell your vision into the company, you're going to find it a big uphill battle to get stuff done and to get buy-in and to get that sort of budget within there. So with the email teams and sort of the email operations, if what you're working on doesn't cover some of these 4 areas, you have to kind of question why you're working on them. So that's the sort of 4 principles that I work to with a general audit for there. So some of the aims that we have is, excuse me, is about, you know, completing that email audit, being able to present those findings to the business, and then delivering on that proactive plan that's in there. And I've got some you know, some hints and tips about how to do that a bit later on. So it's not just yourself that does that, you know, obviously it really is a collaboration piece with the rest of the business. But looking at, you know, key milestones about maturity stages. So, you know, the very bottom, you've got your batch and blast, and you're going up to then like real-time optimization, you know, that changes content and the open timings, etc. And you know, what the weather is and bits and pieces like that based on behaviorals. So you've got a big range of sort of from the, you know, being able to push people through. And that's the audit is there to work out, where do I sit within that maturity matrix on the, again, looking at setting up the email automations and the email calendar. So you'd be, you know, the email person is responsible for that. So you're looking at how many, you know, cadences, frequencies, how many people are getting what, and sort of owning the whole operation in terms of there. You've got, you know, templates, you know, email design systems, which we'll talk about later. Do you have the right ESP, the CRM tools available? If you don't have the right tools, it's almost like trying to fight a battle with one hand tied behind your back, right? Because you need that. Any builder or plumber or electrician will tell you the same thing. No different in our industry. And again, we're looking about how leads are qualified, especially on the B2B side, which we'll touch on a bit later. But you know, are leads all treated the same way when you get there? How are they developed? You know, how are they qualified? Now, how do you focus your energies on the ones that are really like your best fit clients within there? And again, the documentations, you know, people for that continuous process, you don't want one person to leave. You don't need your email person to leave and the whole thing collapses. Like, it has to be progressive. It has to be ongoing all the time, so that when you're handing over, it doesn't harm the institution or the organization that you work for. You've got this constantly progressive email operation in progress. So these are some of the aims that come out of the audit of what you're looking to do, is to kind of set the foundation level so that you can move forward and you can work out where you need to put resources, where you need to put budget in there. Are you doing above average in other places? Are you doing below par? So it really helps identify those key areas, because there's just not enough hours in the day, right, to get everything done. So it's really where to focus on those. So I'll take you through how I do the audit procedure, and it's normally from an outside in approach. So the deliverability is normally the key aspect that I look at first, Joy, because if you're sitting on any sort of you know, like blacklists, or any sort of, you have any warnings or stuff like that, they're the sort of things that you need to look out for. You know, do they have their, you know, have they got their SPF and their DKIM set up? And I'll show you my checklist that I go through there. But how are complaints dealt with? How are preferences? Because how this data comes in and out, and the marketing preferences that you have, it's obviously determines in the first place who you're able to target and who you're able to email. So a lot of that is around, is that, you know, if I can increase the deliverability rate by 0.5%, like the inbox placement rate by 0.5%, how many more emails does that mean I'm going to get into their primary inboxes? So regardless of your messaging, regardless of your content, regarding everything else, if you can't get the email delivered in, that's the first port of call, really. So I always start with looking at that and making sure that, they've got the domains to reject and sort of all the other little bits and pieces that are required there. The second part is looking at previous emails. So I then go through, normally look at the last 2 years worth of emails, and look at high performing emails, which ones are the worst performers, look at the triggered emails as well, and try to work out the value of an email address for the business. So that gives me an idea of trying to forecast what sales are going to be later on, and what that email database is worth as a financial asset to the company. So it's really about benchmarking and KPIs. Like, you need to set a level that can determine, am I doing well or am I underperforming? And so that's where it comes in with the analytics. In terms of the email assets, and again, one of the reasons for moving to Taxi as well is, that production, about being able to build great emails at a very quick pace, and being able to react to the market, things are going out. So a lot of the email teams, I noticed, have spent huge amounts of production, resources and time on the production of getting the emails out the door. And they're normally going right to the deadlines with them as well. And if you can reduce that production time by having the right type of email design systems, the right type of modules for the content used, the right types as well, so you've got editorial versus a transactional type, or versus like an e-commerce type, you need the right type of module. So you don't want to have to be coding HTML emails from scratch every time you're sending emails out. You need that design library. You need to be able to do the production part very quickly and be able to be reactive to market. The other parts is the audiences. So how can I segment? I mean, nothing strikes fear into the hearts of email marketers than to have a tap on the shoulder to say, oh, I need my niche email to go out to the whole list. And you think this is not going to be relevant for, like only 80% of them or so. So have I got the audiences set up? Have I got the demographics in place, and the segmentations and the personalization that I need before we start, sort of building out, life cycle automations or something like that, or, just in your general newsletters. So a lot around dynamic content, and rather than doing them on the fly, I'm looking at, have they got these audience groups done? Do they even know their audiences? Is a good question to start with. And being able to feed back on that, because you may find that your list is like, 80-20, where you've got 20% is your ideal market fit, and the other 80%, not quite. You need further information and how they've been interacting. So that's a big crucial part. And then the email strategy as well. I'll just drop us out of the way. This is what we're looking at for triggers in the life cycle. Welcome programs, win back those at risk, and done a lot of work around RFM segmentation, which is like recency, frequency, and monetary, to work out who are champions customers, those that are at risk, and those that are promising or loyal customers as well, so that you can turn those people into advocates for the business and sort of get them for the reviews and testimonials, etc. So that's the first part of it. Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, but itchy trigger finger there. But so with the life cycle mapping as well. So looking at the customer journey. So what steps are the customers taking before they create the account, before they purchase, before they sort of go to the abandoned basket. And you're trying to work out at which stage we can set trigger emails in, where people drop off at, where we need to tighten up, sort of, again, how can you make it as frictionless as possible? And it's been able to feed that back. So if there's like 10 steps, you may find that there's 3 that are unnecessary. So to reduce the amount of steps people have to take to become a customer or purchase something from you. And again, we touched on the automations as well. So actually setting them out. So, a lot of times you can start off at 3 emails, move to 5, move to 9. And I know that some of the most successful ones, like the onboarding emails, are like 21 emails long, and they are broken down by segments, by persona types, by behaviors, using that dynamic content within there. So I think the thing with automations, I've always found, start simply and then expand from there. Otherwise you could end up with a real bird's nest on your hand. Lead generation. Again, sales funnel, and we'll talk about this for the B2B side, in the later slides as well. But, how do people get into the database? How do they join? What are their expectations? What sort of steps they have to go through? Do they get leads scored when they come in? Again, the leads treated the same way. How do you nurture those? And obviously the funnel nudges as well. You find that there are within your sales funnel, you'll find there's a big group of people that just can't get to the next stage. You know, you've got to try and push them through. And again, we'll look at the types of content that will help them to do that. But, you know, sort of getting those funnel nudges in place. Again, we spoke about the segmentation, especially around the dynamic content. But also, I think, you know, looking at the content and assets of a company, and that's really important because that determines your frequency of the emails that can go out. So, do I need budget for a copywriter, or do I need budget to have creative assets? Is there something in house? So, if I'm working in a team and there's one copywriter and there's one graphic designer, the amount of emails I can get out the door or sort of produce depends on the workload that they have and the resources and the time that they can offer me. And obviously, how does that process and workflow you know, work with that? Do I have to come in a sprint? Do I have to get in the line? Can I get a jump start on things? So all of this information I'm putting together to work out what is then potentially possible for me to achieve within the next 3, 6, 9, and 12 months within there. So it's really important to you know, audit what resources you have available and or budget that is going to be able to help you achieve that. And you know, you see, one of the things I love about the emails at the moment, you see those custom illustrations. You see a lot of emails with custom illustrations in at the moment. And obviously someone's got to produce those. So if you want really great graphic, aesthetically looking, pleasing emails, you've got to have the resources to be able to do that, you know, with sort of the skill sets within your teams. So I just wanted to show everybody and yourself some of the things that I use. So over the years, what I'm doing is I'm just adding like little things that I should be checking out at each stage. So as you can see, like my deliverability, obviously the first thing is to say who is responsible for the authentication within the company, like some sort of technical team or deliverability team that's in there. Do they have all the DMARC in place? You know, how, you know, do they share an IP address? Is it a dedicated one? So all of these things I'm ticking off because they will be in the audit report that that you would do for the organization. And then that lets you know what actions you need to take. So obviously you're not going to hit all of these, and someone's like, right, well, we need to take these actions, delegate to those or able to do them yourselves. The second one in the middle here is for preference center. So when I'm auditing a preference center, obviously one of the first things is to test out that unsubscribe process to make sure it works. And that's something, you know, just don't just do that once a year. You need to do that sort of every three months, I would recommend, just in case something breaks at the end. And you know, from a legal point of view, from a compliance point of view, you know, it doesn't hurt to do that every 3 months. You know, you'd rather find the problem before it gets raised to you. But can you give an option for plain text or for HTML? You know, do I offer a reduction, you know, a snooze function, or can I reduce my newsletter from a weekly to a monthly function? So what is available within the preference center and what are they missing? You know, one of the great things I don't see too often is to show examples of the emails there. So having a quick link that people say, well, I don't know what this email does or what value it will bring to me. Have an example in the preference center, and then people can see exactly what it is before they sign up. And that way you're managing expectations. It won't be, you know, be exactly what they're looking for when it hits the inbox. And things like the opt-in reviews as well. So I always opt in. What process do they come in? Is it a single opt-in, double opt-in? Do they have the right type of wording in there? You know, have they got opt-in links to the terms and conditions, privacy policies? Is it really clear? You know, do we mention how frequently this email is going to be? You know, what other areas do we have? Landing pages? Do we have pop-up bars? These sort of things. So when we look about the improvements to be made later on, we're looking at what can we add. You know, what do we have in place now? How is that producing? Like how valuable is that? And what other areas can we test to see if we can increase the acquisition that's coming into our email database? So this is how I do it, and I tick list, and then obviously this all goes into the audit document at the end. So it's very easy for people to see the actions that's needed to be taken. Does that all make sense, Joy? Does that any questions sort of around those?
Into the process, and it's pretty good that you've got it all documented, because the old saying, you know, if I get hit by a bus, if somebody for whatever reason is not available, there should be documentation so that anybody can pick it up and say, this is how we're doing it. Or, you know, what about that preference center? Who did, you know, what are we doing there? Here's the documentation. This is how we're gaining new folks. Do these segments even coming in make any sense? Do we need to change them, as opposed to what have we done? I don't know, that person left and we don't know what we're doing. And then 6 months down the line, you've got a mess in your preference center. And that's your audience. So, your segments won't work. Your campaigns are not aligned properly because you haven't been putting the right people in the right bucket. So all sorts of things can happen. I liked quite a lot of what you had to say there. When we're looking around, we're looking around at people, stakeholders. We're considering management. So an audit makes people accountable. Like I said, how does the factor fit in?
Exactly. Yeah, we'll talk about that in the stakeholder management part of the deck as well. I think one of the key things as well around that this audit is about ownership. Who owns this part of the business? And again, like transactional emails, when you're coming in, you need to clarify whether you're owning that or have influence on the transactional side, because normally it's run separately from marketing, and it's more of a technical aspects of what's in there. But as email marketers, we know that if you're able to optimize those transactional emails, the benefits are exponential to what it keeps deliverability high. These are emails that people really like to receive. They're saving those receipts to refer back to them into the inbox as well. So I think a lot of that is who owns this with there. And yes, you're right, it can be uncomfortable. So we'll look at some ways of how to deal with that later.
Yeah.
On there.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Measuring the bottom line here. An email audit will discover how to increase sales and conversions month over month, year over year, even campaign over campaign. So let's talk a little bit about stakeholders and measurements, and take it away.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. We'll jump through. Yeah. So the stakeholder side of it, and that leads quite nicely into it. And it's you don't want to embarrass people, right? This is the problem. You're highlighting issues that are maybe systemic or organizational within the business. But it's to highlight that. And I think, there was one time that I did the audit, and my line manager, she looked at it and she was like, right, okay, crack on, put that in your desk and lock your desk. I don't want you to show people. Because they obviously thought, they looked at that and then, well, this is going to reflect very badly on me. And actually, I learned a great deal from that as well. So, but before we start getting into what's wrong with the business and what we need to fix, I always take it, there are some personal competencies which you need to manage to start with. And that's going to affect your relationships. And you can't just go in all guns blazing, you're doing this wrong, we need to improve this stuff. Doesn't work that way. You're just going to put everybody's nose out of joint. So some of the things that I look at before, during this audit process as well is, making sure that I understand the business model. How does this company make its profits? Like which products or areas does it generate the biggest margins on? How do we generate the audiences, etc., like that. So I need to understand the actual business model that I'm working within and how that operates. One of the other areas as well is about how everything integrates with the customer data and the integrations and the technology, etc. And this is where you can come up with some serious issues, because you may find that the transactional data isn't connected to the marketing platform or your sending platform. So how do we get a single customer view with like the profile data, the behavioral data, and the transactional data in there as well? So one of the key areas is that, okay, well, it's great, but I'm not going to be able to do RFM scoring or real-time emails, that are optimized if I don't have all of this data combined, because I won't be able to make the conditional statements that will say, and if and or, that I need this profile, if they're in this location, last came to the site in X 30 days and purchased in, like, say, the last 12 months or something like that. So that's a real key part of being able to make that progress forward.
Yeah, keeping a silo and keeping data in a silo can really mess things up.
Yeah, and then sometimes you also have data that overlaps each other as well. So you may have the same data in one field that you have in another, and you think, well, which one should I be using, or which is the more recent? So I think clarifying that there's trying to do your best to get to a single source of truth with the data. because you can create great email campaigns and really great email communications. You know, you've got the right copy to the right audience and stuff like that. But if you can't trust your data, it's going to be really difficult, right? So it's you've got to clarify all of that and make sure that you understand where things sit, because there's no point putting stuff in the pipeline to be done in 6 months if you know that that integration isn't going to happen till next year when you get another piece of software or a platform in. So that's where you start thinking, right, okay, well, actually, what are my requirements as well to be able to successfully run the email channel here? I think the other key thing is about the conversion funnel and what those milestones look like as well. So how does it, how does this sales process look, or how does the conversion funnel look like, and what sort of content and nudges, what sort of frequency do I need? But just to be able to remonstrate with your colleagues that you understand how that works. And, especially when you want to get on side with salespeople, you really need to know how that sales funnels work, so that they are fully aware that you're supporting them rather than trying to compete against them, because a lot of, and we'll touch on this, but a lot of sales go, right, now this is my money, this is our league, this is our call. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. And I think they worry about marketing taking that money, but it's not. Marketing's there to support that, because you have to have a multi-channel approach. You can't just rely on email to do everything. It'll do the heavy work, but it won't deliver everything. And it needs to work in conjunction, and but being able to talk to the sales team, you have to understand these areas so that you're on board with them. And I think as well, positioning yourself. So we'll talk about that in a second, about championing yourself as the go-to person for email advice and advice. Like, you are the email expert within your business, and people come to you, and it's about being known, and it's about being trusted and being relied upon, that people can come to you about this information. And then what I found happened is that word gets about within the business, and then you'll have the customer service team come to you, go, oh look, we need to improve some of our emails and stuff like that, can you get involved? Yeah, sure. And then other areas around the business, like especially sales, working with them. So it's about how you position yourself. So these are some of the areas, I think, before you go and look at some of the tough questions, is actually what can I do first before I start approaching these areas. This is a really key part of it, is collaboration and communication with it, and how you work with your colleagues or how you work with the rest of the business determines really how successful you're going to be elsewhere. Because having projects together, and again, you may say, look, we might be lacking. The audit has found that this isn't connected or lacking or something else like that. And utilizing those opportunities for multi-team success. So what I mean by that is, like, the director of marketing or your very senior stakeholders will want to see the business, different teams working together to produce benefits for the company as a whole, right? They love that collaboration, and that needs to happen. So being able to pitch, if you need other teams to do work for you, like the technical team or elsewhere, sort of working around the transactional stuff, it's like, if we do this together, you are then able to claim this as a technical success credit or customer services credit, and this is a win for you, and it's good for your profile, it's good optics for within the company, and the thing is, don't be a glory hunter with this. Get it. If you want other people to do the work for you, Joy, you've got to give them the credit for it and to get on with it. And so, but as long as it produces the results, that's what you're looking for. One of the other things that I found in my experience, and I love this part of the audit because it's really interesting. I go and speak to all of the other stakeholders that I work with that are in other teams, like the head of sales or etc. like that, to ask them what their optimal customer experience is. Like, how do they assume this journey should go? Like, how should the customers be treated? And very much like lead scoring, like, the execution of it is very easy, but it's getting consensus and agreement with different heads of the teams, like across the business, to agree on what that looks like. So what should be the optimal customer experience is going to be very different for sales than it is for marketing, than it is for customer services. So you've got to get everybody's views involved and try to work out what is the best compromise or a starting position to be able to do that. So again, if you're setting out welcome journeys, who is that going to benefit you know, and what should be in there. And it's the same with the, like I mentioned, with the lead scoring. Actually, relatively easy to do, but getting agreement on it is, you know, can be the difficult part. And you know, and don't assume that your stakeholders know about email marketing. You know, you really have to start at the very beginning and the basics, like just to assume that they don't know. And it's like, you know, they might not know about the deliverability, they may know about audience or segmentation. And if you see someone's eyes glaze over when you start talking about personalization, you know that you needed to bring it down a level. So don't assume, and just go in there and think about the very basics, and then you'll find the knowledgeable people and you'll work with them to do that. But a big key aspect to being able to do that is being able to interpret what their email data is doing and being able to provide that. So you really do need to be doing either quarterly stand-ups or at least 6 monthly stand-ups for the rest of the business to show how your email is performing, what you've been doing, how, you know, improvements or areas that you're going to be working on, because then everybody knows what is on the agenda coming up, and they will help you. You know, you cannot do it all by yourself, and so you need other areas of the business to be able to do that. And to do that, you need to sell it, and that goes back to being the go-to person and you know, having that confidence to do that. And I think one of the mistakes that I've made in doing the audits before, Joy, is that I did the audits and like almost went up the mountain, you know, for you know 12 weeks, and came down and go, right, this is the grand plan and strategy, and everyone goes, whatever, I'm not doing that. You know, because you didn't get everybody involved, it simply won't work, because you will not get buy-in for what the plans that are coming up, or for sort of, you know, with the audit, unless you can incorporate those ideas from the other teams and what's important for them. And it can be quite upsetting. You come down, it's like, right, I'm the email expert, I've got a really great plan, this is our plan for the next, you know, 12 to 36 months, this is what we're doing, and it doesn't work. It really doesn't. Like, you need, how I've done it before, after that incident, was like, I did the audit findings, and then I worked with the rest of the teams on what those processes and what these activities and objectives are going to be. So rather than do the whole thing together, because you know, it's just too much for one person or even for a small team to do. You set the agenda for the year, there's just too much to do, you know. So just, it's starting small and then getting everybody else to buy in with it. And I found that that's been really helpful. I mean, yeah, so I don't know how your experiences have been, or any comments on any of those.
Transparency is very important, because if you do come off the mountain with this 10 commandments and they're looking at you like, well, I didn't have time to do any of this. You know,
Yeah.
somebody else just gave me this other big project. You really do need to collaborate. It's very important to collaborate with all the team, with management, so that management buys into any process that you may um, assume and or request or recommend. It is a big deal. I mean, I try to touch base weekly, no less, come up with audits just to see if anything's changed, because you'll have stakeholders that will come up with something in a conversation in a high level meeting that will suddenly switch everything. And
Yes.
you know, if you're not having conversations and collaborating, from sales to marketing to social to paid, if you're not having those conversations, suddenly you're blindsided. Oh,
Yeah.
well, this is not working? Well, why didn't somebody tell me that? Oh, well, you know, we thought you. So it is very important. It is an evolution. It's not something that happens once and then in 12 months you start doing it again. It really is a process that you're holding on to, and you're in the back of your head. You're thinking to yourself, do we need to switch? Do we need to have a meeting? Is it really time to take a look at these processes once again? You know,
And I think absolutely, and I think it also helps to manage your own expectations. So I think sometimes, you know, other parts of marketing will not go up to the PPC or the SEO person and go, oh, I think you should do this. They don't understand. But for some reason, a lot of general marketers or digital marketers think they know a lot about email, and to get involved with it. And you come down from the mountain, you go, right, I am putting all my expertise and knowledge from what I've learned about my own competencies about the business to put a plan together. And then you get frustrated and annoyed that they're not following it, or it's not of interest to them. But how you, again, it's that approach, exactly just like you've mentioned. And I think getting that being transparent about it. So rather than producing an email bible for them and all the plans and actions that's going to happen, just do it in chunks, segment it out, and then just do one bit, check it out, get feedback, do the next part, check it out and get feedback. But how I do it now is I put the facts on the table to start with, and then I work with the stakeholders on the plan on how we're going to assume that. And when people go, I don't like that, it's like, well, actually, the data says this is what the data. I'm trying to tell you what the data says. We're trying to help you to understand with that. Oops, let's get forward. Oh no, this is a culture thing as well, and I think it sounds so cheesy, winning hearts and minds, but if they brought you in as an email expert, again, if this is they're looking for that experience of yours to bring it in, but a lot of it depends on how the culture is in the company, and so you've got this continuous battle with marketing and sales, right? Marketing saying, well, we're doing all the advertiser, sales turn around and say, well, we're keeping you in a job, and you're butting heads with them sometimes.
Right.
But get them to take a leap of faith. Again, it's how they believe in you and how you come across. It's that personable aspect with it, and being transparent, like you said, and being negotiating, like you said, that brings this culture change around. So again, from moving from how a lead's dealt with to more like an account. I've used it as B2B. To be honest with you, I don't really have much sort of B2C e-commerce experience or anything like that. So, but the B2B stuff I find really far more interesting, because longer lead sales, more difficult. You've got more decision makers in the process. It's more of a challenge, and that's where I really sort of like to dig into it. But moving to the how to being proactive with the type of engagement that we have on that, and that's including, say, like for a welcome series, it has to be multi-channel, and you have to include sales in these touch points. 3 emails, a sales call, and you can't just have it all the email. It doesn't work, and you've got to bring in the other channels. A bit of social, a bit of search and stuff like that. So it all has to be tied in. But again, moving out from trying to nail these audiences and everything, down. So it's not just random organizations that are coming into your email database and just treating them the same or something, but actually you're targeting these messages specific personas and buying groups, right? Because if a great market fit comes through the door, you don't want to set them through a normal onboarding automation. You need to lead score them high because they're a great match, and then just treat them a little bit special because that it's that 80-20 rule, right? So most of it comes from the 20%. So but I think with sales, the issue working with sales is about getting them to move away from this manual process, because, and I do appreciate that nothing beats picking up the phone and saying, how's your family? How was your holiday? You need a voice at the other end of the line. That's how those building those relationships about. But I think it's about getting that trust from sales to be able to do that, and moving away from the manual process and thinking, right, a lead has come in, and it's like, right, don't touch it. Just give it, we've got a series of 3 emails that are now booked in. You're going to nurture them, provide them a bit more. We lead score them for you. So when you get your list on the Friday morning, the sales team can, trust the technology and the automation, and you'll have your top hot leads there to be calling. So just take it easy. Don't call them, let it go in. And again, you've seen this yourself. You go to a marketing site, you download a brochure or download a guide of how to, whatever, and you get a phone call 20 minutes later from the sales, and they're like, hey, what did you think of that? And you're like, I haven't even read it yet. What are you doing? So that's a really, you see, and everyone's done that. And that's a really great way of, that sales and marketing working out. Just trusting that. We're going to send an automated follow-up. How did you find it? What's your thoughts? Stuff like that. So as a marketer, my role is that when that salesperson picks up the telephone, they have all the information they possibly can do, like more insight into that role. It's not just, oh, thanks for downloading the brochure, yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I know what you looked at. I know for how long you looked at it. I know, not in a creepy way, but I know the areas, and it just gives me that insight of what angle I'm going to be able to tackle that, the salesperson can tackle that phone call with. And again, we talked about the data silos earlier. So it's really important to have those sales, the sales and the marketing in as well. And I guess, you'll have the sales, like Salesforce, for example, and I'm not promoting anything, but just as an example, like Salesforce will have all your sales details, the calls and everything on there, like that. And how does marketing get to use that? how does sales get to use all the marketing engagement, the open, the clicks, what they've looked at, which funnels they're in, which nurture campaigns. So being able to push them together to have an overall single customer view. Easier said than done though, Joy. It's really hard to do, to have all of that in one place. But again, I think it's the collaboration part, collaborating with sales. So don't have sales sitting on their own. Make sure that you've got the two of you working together. Regular checkups, regular speeches, regular feedback and presentations. That all helps build that relationship. To move on from the silos to a joint. But again, I never assume anything when I join a company, and you will normally find that they are not working as well as they could together. And the email is a great way of being able to bridge that gap in. And again, like, no, I don't want the credit. Let the sales team take the credit for the upsell or the the increase in the average order values or the increase in sales. That's fine. We're just doing our job. We just chip away. But what they then come to trust you and they respect you on that. So when you tell them, look, why don't we try this? They're much more susceptible to it. For there. So yeah. So I just before we get onto the business stage funnels, I mean, did that all make sense? Any questions on that side of things?
It's everything you said is so true. I hope everybody's digesting it really well because it's a lot of information, but it really is about the big footprint of email marketing and how it works in a group, and all of the best possible ways of managing it correctly, as opposed to keeping it in a silo and thinking that you know everything and managing it all by yourself and not giving credit where credit's due and not sharing. Let's talk a little bit about, those improvements and those sales and moving things through the funnel.
Yeah, sure. And I think this is where it starts to get, the quantitative measures. And I think as an email marketer, you think, when we come to the end of year review, we're looking at performance bonuses. We look, how am I being measured? And I think, again, this is a great example of a B2B sales funnel. I'm not sure where I got the image, so if anybody can tell me where it was, I'll put the credit onto there. But it was a really great illustration of thinking about how, obviously, people are coming in, they're putting a number of leads into the database. At that stage, it doesn't mean anything. These are just numbers, and this is where you're working with marketing or the search team or PPC and SEO to think, how can we get more numbers into the sales funnel? But once they're in there, once they've submitted that form or signed up for it or provided their details into it, that's where marketing has to earn its money, in keeping them warm. So what I look for in each of these stages is I'm trying to get the numbers in there, and also the time that they spend in there as well, because at the end of the day, we all want a shorter sales cycle. We all want faster, better sales wins, higher sales win percentages within there. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking it all down into these chunks and looking at the time frames of, like, you've got people in the acquisition stage, and then they've got to, have, that's just an expression of interest. So actually they need to show a bit of engagement. They need to show us a bit of love and show us what they're interested in with it. So one of the things that still surprises me at the moment is where people don't tack the activation parts of it. So maybe this month you got 500 new leads into your database, and then you get to the end of your welcome series and you've got very small numbers or something. You think, well, obviously my welcome series isn't doing very well. But actually you may find that there's a big chunk of that list, a big chunk of that 500 that never opened an email, they never clicked an email, like, for whatever reason, they're just have not engaged or activated. So they're almost a dead lead. And then what you want to do is you just want to cut them out and get them off your database as soon as possible, because that's the other issue, is that you come in, when you do the audit, you find big chunks of your list I was getting emailed over and over and over again. They'd never opened, they'd never clicked in 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And you think, wow, this is, and again, that's what I look for when I start with the deliverability aspects of it. So within here, it's like, okay, well, how many people do go on to engage? Because that's the true figure. That's the true figure that you want to get to. And then increasing those through nurture, the nurture campaigns, and making sure that they're split by the persona groups, the content is right for where the lead source is, and obviously finding out where the most successful lead sources are, because you might have one page that, again, I keep saying it 80-20, but one page that does all the bulk of the work where 8% of the leads are, but you want to look at other areas. So where do I put my resources? Where do I put my budget, time and effort into that? So these are the sort of stages that I look at, and I'm able to sort of try to forecast what is likely to come in by the end of the month or by next month, or even in the quarter, to have a look at. But what it does, it gives me the numbers. It's the facts that I want within there. It's no good. Don't tell me, oh, I need to make need to make £500,000 this month. That doesn't mean anything if I can't work out who's in there and what their value is going to likely to be, to be able to forecast it. So it's a really good way of just measuring sort of where everybody's sitting and where that weakness is in that funnel, so you can start then adding in those nudges to get them a little bit further down the line. Or respectfully, ask for feedback. It's like, oh, we know that you haven't opened this or you haven't done that. Could you just let us know why and get an idea about it? So it's a great way of being able to speak to clients and or speak to recipients and find out what's stopping them from moving on to to the next stage with that. And one of the things that to be able to do that is to map the content to the buying stage. You need to be able to educate things. And I can't remember the name of the fellow, but the situation was that if people are going to buy, it's not, they're buying from you as a person because they trust you and because they have a relationship with you, and then they can buy anything. So if you build that relationship, people will buy anything from you rather than just going pitch, and then losing them because people ghost you and then they go off and that's it. You never get them back again. So the main thing is just to be as helpful as I can. As helpful as you can. What do they need? Why have they come to your database in the first place? Why have they entered? And to be able to provide the right type of content to them, but don't push it. Don't press. Just provide them value. And then lead score that. See what they're looking at, and then you can soon determine which email is the weakest in the series, but also to work out which content they are really enjoying. Like what is helping them get to that next stage within the sales funnel that we saw. So not only just what that content is about, and again, services or the authority, but also what type of content is most likely to help you get there as well. But I think one area that I always find that people or companies lacking is that after sales care. So once you've made that purchase, how many times do you get? And you'll probably get a survey email, right? Saying, "Oh, tell us how we did," or anything else. But after that, it's like, well, how do you then look after this product? How do I care? How do I nurture for it? When should I go for a rebuy or anything else like that? So you've still got this massive education piece after purchasing, where you can build those again. And if the frequency of the purchases are like once every 12 months or once every 18 months, for example, like that, it's so important to do that. So because you've got such a big time frame within the next purchase, period, that they will go, do you know what? He was really helpful. That content was really great. And I really enjoyed that video. And actually I've managed to make this last a little bit longer. Okay, I'm going back to them. And I know I see a lot of people, it's a lot of firms that once they've made the purchase, that's kind of the end of the journey for them, and it absolutely should not be. And I think there's always work to be done on that side to get people back for repeat purchases, because a lot cheaper, a lot easier to get people to buy again from you than trying to get somebody in from scratch, like on the acquisition side. So and again, when we look at those, it's actually what sort of persuasion techniques can we put into there as well. You get a lot about fear of missing out, scarcity, this by now there's only 3 left or 10 people are looking at this particular thing right now. So being able to try all of those areas, all of those emotions, like the human aspect, what makes us human. It's not just all the value and benefits, but actually what resonates with us as well. And especially if you're working for a charity and looking for donations, that has to align, you intrinsically align with the value of what I feel in here to what the charity's mission statement is and everything else. So those sort of persuasion techniques are, really important, across each of these as well. So it's just one of those things that are like test, really. We know what content is working better for you, but the content and everything that is on here, Joy, obviously goes back to that first question that we looked in the audit, is how much content can I create? Who's going to create that for me? Where am I going to get my hands on that? So it's, again, it's all about managing your own expectations about when you are able to deliver certain areas. And this is really what we're looking for, again, on the B2B side of things. So that, when they enter the database, you've literally got their contact info. So we need, maybe a bit more progressive profiling. or get that expression of interest from them about getting them to engage with certain content or other, with the salesperson or the clients. You're having to qualify them, make sure that they can afford your product or budget, people they're in the right market fit for it, etc. Whether they're actually in a position to buy now, or is that going to be 6 months or 12 months later? When you come into a shortlisted position against competitors as well, they start looking at competitive differentiation, and which features are better, what's going to suit their business more, how much of the costs are going to be. And again, really, that's where the support action comes in the selection. So when we're looking at our sales funnel, these are the sort of figures that I'm putting against each of these areas, these 6 areas here, to work out what is coming down, what I can forecast, how much we're likely to make, and what is the key problem area that I need to focus on. So we may find that, people meet the agreed criteria, but they're not purchasing, or they are already enabled, but we don't get shortlisted. Why? And that's where you can focus on. That's where you think, right, okay, let's do some more materials, let's do some more marketing around this side, so that we can help sales get these people into the next part of the line. And if you can work with your sales team on that, they will love you to bits, on that side. So, but at the end of the day, what are we measuring on? And so the objectives and the goals that we have, so increasing the volume by new lead acquisition by X%. This goes back to the benchmarking previously. So the last year or so, it has going to make a massive difference to some people. Some businesses will have prospered and some unfortunately would have suffered from that. So, you're trying to look at historically where what are you going to benchmark your to, or what is a realistic, like a SMART goal that you're able to look at. But again, improving the percentage rates of which these qualify, that's a key metric. And again, the sales, if you can align the marketing with the sales on that, getting from marketing qualified to sales qualified per month, those reducing the churn for those, getting those sales ready leads over to them by the month, and trying to increase, from 5 to 10 to 15, 20, whatever, just as long as you're incrementally making those differences. And obviously try to close those deals, try and close those deals as quickly as you can. And if you can map these out and work with sales on this, that's how you bring that alignment together. That's how you're doing it, because they need to know that you're not just going to take their chunk of money. You're not going to make them look bad, and actually you're there to support them and you're there to help them with these key metrics. And if you can work side by side with them, that's how the best companies get together. When you see someone they're really on the money, that's where they have it. They've got that marketing and sales aligned with it. So I think that's me on that side, Joy, going through. If anybody wants to give me
just a wow amount of information, their strategy, everything you've said. The thing is, people just say, let's do content, but there's strategy built into content. People
Absolutely.
say, let's send it on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. There's strategy built into that. Let's send it earlier, let's send it later. There's strategy built into that. And if you don't look at what you're doing, and if you just throw it at the wall, and you don't come up with a strategy, you'll never be able to audit anything and never be able to do what you said. In the end, it's all about making salespeople happy, but also getting them to trust you so that you can work together with them in the future. And you continue to get those percentages going up and not going down. And you don't get them to shut you down, because once they shut you down, you're in that silo.
Absolutely.
If
I could not agree more.
Trust marketing, it's a no-win situation.
Yes,
it's
absolutely. And I think. Sorry.
If sales doesn't trust marketing, you've got a party and no one's coming.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you've got to make everything up yourself.
Yeah.
Whether it's B2B or B2C, in that case, if your sales folks are the website and you haven't aligned yourself with the tech team, with the products on the website, all of those things. If you haven't done that, there's no point. Yeah,
absolutely. And that to sort of bring full circle is exactly what that audit is about, is identifying these areas that are going to need the work. And you can imagine, just obviously in the last year or so, that maybe sales all of a sudden will have no new leads coming in, or massive reduction in leads, or sort of business. Where are they going to get them from? Who are they going to speak to? And they come to marketing, and the marketing is going to help bring more people into them during that tough times, and that's when you really sort of start relying and trusting each other to do it. But I think the whole thing about it is being able to, gather up all that information, and rather than sort of putting it in an embarrassing way or a critical way of the business, actually saying, well, this is great because we've identified these areas that we can make improvements on. And I think, and again, if you could put financial value, even better, if we tighten this up, it's going to give us an extra 5% revenue or something like that. But building those relationships and working with them and getting people on board, and they go, right, this is a guy or this is an email person that we can trust and we can run with them. Let's go and talk to them. And you'll find that then really helps you in your career as well, because when you come to that promotion or something, the director's going, what do you think about this person or that salesperson? Go, we love them. They're absolutely on board. They understand what's in customer services. They've helped us reduce the amount of calls we've had to make. Wonderful. And so it can only benefit you in that area. Once you've got that, then you can go and get more budget. Then when you say, right, I'd like to have this extra platform or this nice little bit of tool that's going to make all the difference, they absolutely trust you to give it to you. And so it builds up. And again, I apologize if I move quite fast through there. I do like to talk at a speed, and there's a lot of information to cover, and know that we're bang on the hour. So, but I hope, again, if anything unclear, anybody just drop me a line, give me a contact. I'll be always happy to have a conversation.
You want to put that slide back up where people can contact you?
Yeah, sure thing.
Giving everybody a lot of email tips to consider over coffee, and if folks want to contact you, this is where you go.
Yeah. This is where I am. So yeah, Twitter or LinkedIn's a good place to get me, or you're welcome to drop me a line. Where I'm working for Taxi for Email, drop me a line and a little pitch. I mean, if anybody would like to have a look at the platform or what it could do for the business, give me a call, and we can get it sorted out. But community, I think this year, out of all of them, Joy, as I'll stop saying that now. We spoke about this before, but getting in touch, because this year has been particularly tough. And it's just great to work and speak with like-minded other email marketing professionals like yourself. And it just, you think we have common issues, we have common struggles, like in a professional sense and the type of things. And we're able to, discuss those and talk about them. And then you're just like, yes, I've had that happen before. How did you get over that? And it's a great way of being able to share experiences and how better.
Sweet secret sauce.
Yeah, yes.
Really
very much indeed. Yeah, we do. And I think that's what I think that, Joy, I think that's what puts the email geeks above the others. If I think just between you and me, I think that's what keeps the others keeps us above, because we've got that comparison. Yeah, but don't tell anybody.
Well, thanks again, Rhett. This has been great.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. It was a pleasure talking to you, Joy.
There you have it. Well, it's the end of our time here, so I'd like to just say happy email marketing, y'all. Take care.